Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for Derek Chisora vs Kubrat Pulev, and Derek Chisora avenges his 2016 loss in a sometimes sloppy contest, a lot of holding, but also a lot of action, sometimes a lot of fun. So the scorecards, we had 116-112 for Pulev, 116-112 for Chisora, and 116-114 for Chisora, and that last card was from Steve Gray, and I can't make the maths work on that one. But in terms of those cards, I can see why there could be some swing rounds there. On my card, I had Pulev ahead by one heading into the 12th, and I gave Derek Chisora the 12th, so my card a draw. But I thought there were three swing rounds, and at points in the fight, it did depend on, well, what do you like? Because there were some close competitive rounds. Derek Chisora started strongly, and he didn't really gas out after 3 rounds. There was a relatively sort of frenetic pace for the first about 5 or 6 rounds or so, and after that, that was when Chisora started to slow down and Kubrat Pulev started to come more into the fight. So the first sort of half a dozen rounds, you had Chisora implementing a game plan of body attack, really targeting the body of Kubrat Pulev almost exclusively. And that probably did pay some dividends later in the fight. It did sort of weaken those 41-year-old legs a little bit. He didn't seem to have as much snap on his punches later on, but obviously it's a 12-round fight. You're going to tire through the fight. But there was some crazy stat through round 6 that popped up towards the end of that round where Pulev had Chisora had landed 55 body punches almost at the halfway point, and 45 of those were power punches. So he was really sort of ripping it in hard and often and having a lot of success to the body. Whereas Kubrat Pulev, after a round or two of trying to find his feet, he was starting to work the jab, he was starting to land the uppercut and starting to come in with straight rights, chopping right hands. And it was sort of the pattern in the story of the fight for the first about 7 or 8 rounds, where a lot of back and forth action, sort of mostly the same most rounds, with Chisora doing the same things, having success, and Kubrat Pulev doing the same things, sometimes mixing in the left hook as well. But I did think that Derek Chisora through that halfway mark was up, but it came to a point in the fight where he started slowing down, and I think it was the 8th round where he started to sort of, or maybe it was the 7th, sort of in that round region where he was slowing down a bit, and Kubrat Pulev, behind his boxing, was starting to pick up rounds. In round 8, he rattled Derek Chisora with a big uppercut, and that sort of had him sort of backing up and wobbled, but then he came straight back, and that was one of the things for both these guys. If they took a big shot, they would look to sort of exact the same price from their opponent and try to get straight back. And often that happened. In that case, in round 8, Derek Chisora, big overhand right, and actually I think it was more of the forearm that landed. But towards the back end of the fight, I thought, man, this is getting really close. And it was only in round 11, because I had Kubrat Pulev starting to rack up some of those later rounds on the back of the boxing, more activity, landing more. And in round 11, after that round, was the first time I actually had him ahead in the fight. But I thought that Derek Chisora landed the more eye-catching work in round 12. A couple of big overhand rights, that sort of stuff. And Kubrat Pulev just didn't quite maybe finish as strong as I thought he needed to sort of put it, out of doubt. But obviously, on a couple of those cards, it didn't really matter. Chisora getting the decision. Well, actually, I guess Steve Gray's weird 116-114 card, if Pulev had got that last round, it would have been a split draw. Based on what we heard, unless David Diamante read out the cards wrong. But 116-114 was kind of weird, because what is that representing, like 14 rounds of action or something like that? And anyway, it was a good fight in the sense that there was a lot of action back and forth. Maybe the quality of the fight wasn't sort of there, but in terms of an entertainment standpoint, it delivered to a large degree. I mean, let's face it, sort of step back and go, there really wasn't much on the line here in terms of divisional relevance. This was more of a case that both these guys, back end of their career, chasing another decent payday, and they actually delivered on the action front. especially when compared to the first fight. The first fight wasn't any great shakes for the action, but this one really did deliver. I thought Derek Chisora was going to gas much sooner than he ultimately did. The final sort of 3 or 4 rounds, he was looking pretty ragged. He was going back to his tactic of sort of laying all over those ropes and looking for counters. And because he was doing that so much, I thought that was actually letting in Pulev really into the fight and racking up rounds on the back of that. But he gets the win, and let's face it, this is probably one of the best wins of his career, if not the best win. Pulev at this point might be a bit faded from his prime, but we saw against Jerry Forrest just some months ago, he's still got something left in the tank. So Derek Chisora, he rolls on, and this is maybe this in the Carlos Takam fight. You can sort of make of it what you will in terms of Takam at that point, and even Pulev being older fighters, that sort of stuff. Still very good wins, and he remains his place as a sort of gatekeeper to the world level. You had Eddie Hearn afterwards talking about Pulev was still a top 10 fighter. I don't believe he is at this point, but still he was probably somewhere in or around the top 15 to top 25, but it is a significant win for Chisora. For Pulev, well, what does that mean? I know that there's probably going to be some controversy about the scorecards here, but like I say, I think there were some rounds where, legitimately it was hard to score. There was 2 or 3 swing rounds. So some of it came down to what did you like? Because sometimes the more eye-catching work might come from Derek Chisora, and he was landing a lot of body shots, but Pulev had some more volume. He was certainly working the jab more. He didn't maybe necessarily have as much on his shots. So I think, we're seeing, at least with the judges, there's quite a sort of swing there from Pulev to Chisora from the judges, which had it for the respective fighters. So we'll just move on to some of the comments from Derek Chisora after the fight. So he said it was hard, it was difficult. He said he was happy, but he also said he was sad because, he says he doesn't have many left, but he will always give it his all. And he wants the hard fights. He wants to fight everyone in his generation, and he called out the Browns Bomber. So I think he meant the Bronze Bomber in Deontay Wilder. I just don't think that's going to happen unless he's willing to go somewhere else. And he indicated to Eddie Hearn, well, you need to keep giving me money or I will go elsewhere. So I won't go so much into that sort of what next stuff in this video. I will follow up with another one. But you have to say that probably, if not the best win of his career, it's close. He's been on the wrong end of some decisions before. Arguably, he won the first fight with Joseph Parker. Arguably, he won the first fight with Dillian Whyte back in 2016. Arguably, he also won the Robert Helenius fight. So he's got one, he's got a close one, and let's face it, he stays on. If he had have lost this one, even though it was a close, entertaining, well-contested fight, a lot more action than that first 2016 fight, if he'd have lost, he probably would have been done as a main eventer. So he's got one here, so he's going to stay at the top table in terms of being considered as a main eventer. He was back with Don Charles for this fight, and obviously they'd worked that game plan with the body shots, and they've had a good win together. And I guess in terms of Kubrat Pulev, well, anyone's guess. People thought he was going to retire after his loss to Anthony Joshua. I guess this loss to Derek Chisora probably extinguishes any chance of another run to a heavyweight title shot, which he was, from all accounts, looking to sort of make a run. I know some people will be bitterly disappointed with the cards and think, I've seen on social media, there's been a lot of different talk about the cards and who really won this fight. And I think you can make a case for either based on what we saw. There were some close rounds that could have gone either way. And obviously the judges saw it the same. What did you make of this performance by Kubrat Pulev and Derek Chisora? This fight, it certainly gelled much better than the first one. I don't think this is a case where you can say because Chisora got the win that it was a robbery, but it was much more entertaining. But definitely no real divisional relevance on the line here, except Chisora stays on, still the gatekeeper to the world level. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.